Jalon Walker has been receiving a lot of attention in this year's upcoming draft, and he will most likely be picked sometime in the first round. I expect it'll be in the middle or the later first round, but he will likely still be a first round talent. And there's a very good reason for that. Walker is a skilled defender and just an incredible athlete all around. I imagine QBs in the SEC trembled when they saw him screaming off the edge like he was a TIE fighter, especially Quinn Ewers, although can we classify him as a quarterback? Maybe. Now, if you're a Bucs fan like me, you remember a small, insignificant problem that the Bucs faced on defense, and that's the fact the defense was so bad at generating a pass rush, most QBs could have a 5-course steak dinner before JTS even laid a finger on them. Cooper Rush beat us by running the same play-action play over and over again because, of course, the pass rush couldn't get home. The other reason is actually that KJ Britt was about as useful as a traffic cone in stopping tight ends and other players over the middle from getting open. Actually, no, I take that back. That's an offense to traffic cones because traffic cones are at least able to tell people don't go there. If not stop them, they can at least signal you don't go there, and most people listen. KJ Britt did anything but warn players from going to where he was because if they went to where he was, they were due for a 20-yard reception. Good news is that Jalon Walker, if drafted by the Bucs, could also solve that problem because he moonlights as a middle linebacker, although I will get into some of the issues he's had when in coverage. If you've read my blog before, Cannon Crunch, it's the same name as this channel, you will know that in the 2 mock drafts I've done so far, one was just a 3-round mock draft, the other being a full 7-round mock draft with no trades. Both times I said that Jalon Walker would be a good pick for the Bucs at 19 in the first round. And I still think that is a good pick for the Bucs and would be a good pick, but he is not a slam dunk prospect. I think there are problems with his game, but there is talent enough there to overcome that, and I want to get into that a little bit. If there is one thing that you notice from the clips of Jalon Walker that I have shown you, or just watching Georgia games in general, is that Jalon Walker is fast. And that speed is used to make plays all over the field. Over the course of 3 seasons, he has 90 tackles, with 57 of those being solo, 19 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks, 73 pushes, 3 passes defended, 2 fumbles recovered, and 1 forced fumble. Again, this is over 3 seasons, with last season being the only time that he's started, and last season he had 38 solo tackles and 6.5 sacks. And the 1 season as a starter, 11 games, is why I think he'll end up dropping to pick 19 and being potentially picked up by the Buccaneers. Of course, the Bucs could pass on him. It depends on how the board falls. But he has 1 season as a starter, and I think a lot of NFL teams will be scared off by that, even though the potential that he shows is huge. The NFL is filled with athletic players that have ultimately failed because teams either don't develop them or they don't, the player is just not as good as we all thought, and they end up, wasting a draft pick. Why then do I think this will work out? Well, I think that a lot of the times when those athletic players fail, it's because teams don't know what they want to do with them. And in Jalon Walker's case, I think that is a very prescient fear because of the fact that he is so versatile. Obviously, you like a guy that plays, multiple positions because it just shows, they can play all over the defense. That is not a bad thing. But when you have a guy like Jalon Walker, the problem becomes NFL teams have trouble deciding where those players can go, and that can screw with their development. Jalon Walker has shown a lot of skill as a pass rusher. You obviously don't get 12.5 sacks if you're not good at rushing the passer. However, I've noticed something with this tape, and that is sometimes he seems to have trouble making a decision, and sometimes that results in him making a bad play. And other people have said this, and I would agree with them. It seems to me that trouble comes from the fact that he doesn't know how to play it because he plays so many different positions. So it seems like he has trouble being like, okay, am I rushing the passer? Am I playing the running back? Like, how am I doing this? And that just results in him taking too long and, the play already happens. If you were to tell him, listen, you're a middle linebacker, you're an edge rusher, you're an off-ball linebacker, I think that will help solve a lot of the issues that he has. A lot of people see him as just an edge rusher, and a lot of people think like that's why he will be the most effective. And based off the tape, I would agree with that. As a middle linebacker, he has not been horrible. However, if you watch the Ole Miss game, you will see a lot of just blown coverages. Hell, I almost got PTSD because I thought I was rewatching some Bucs film. Like, there are some really bad misses, and like I said, Ole Miss is kind of, I would say, his worst game from last year, unless, there's one that I'm missing. And I think there are a few games that I've seen where he just disappears. But on the flip side of that, there are also plenty of games where he shows up and he shows up big. Quinn Ewers probably also has PTSD from lining up against Jalon Walker because he just absolutely destroyed Texas in both of their meetings, but especially the first one during the regular season where he notched, I believe it was 3 sacks against both Quinn Ewers and Archie Manning. Or I should say he notched 3 sacks in total in the game, 2 against Quinn Ewers, 1 against Archie Manning, if memory serves me correctly. That's really the game that put him on the map for this year and is one of the reasons why he won the Bucs Award. It shows what Jalon Walker can be at his best. A guy who's making quick decisions and is just playing with his instincts. It is everything that you can hope for. If every game with Jalon Walker looked like that Texas game, he might legitimately be the first overall pick. Jalon Walker in Texas, or against Texas, was just a game wrecker. Like, that speed that I mentioned before where he looked like a TIE fighter, against Texas he looked even faster than that. Like, linemen were blocking air because he was so fast that they didn't even know that he was past them before Quinn Ewers' ass was on the ground. Like, it was incredible. That is the reason why I want Jalon Walker, is because I see that potential. And say what you will about Todd Bowles, I know I have, and I've criticized him as a head coach, and I think those criticisms are justified. He is still a really good defensive coordinator. Last season was rough in terms of defense, especially pass defense, and also just, again, pass rush being ineffective. I do think part of that ultimately falls upon players, and I think the players that the Bucs had in the defense, especially edge rusher and secondary, were just not ideal when, Jamel Dean misses 5 games every season and YaYa Diaby doesn't have any help outside, again, JTS, who, I'm sorry, is just not working. I think that is cause to realize, like, hey, maybe it's not all Todd Bowles' fault. He deserves blame, yes, but when you have ineffective pass rushers, like, sometimes you have to blame the players and not always the head coach or the defensive coordinator, which in our case is both. I think Todd Bowles is one of the few defensive coordinators that can get the most out of a guy like Jalon Walker. I saw a lot of plays where he lined up at middle linebacker and just blitzed the pass rusher, and he was usually pretty good, as far as I can tell, on those reps. And Todd Bowles has used his linebackers in similar ways. Devin White, was obviously like the big one in 2020, but even last year, Lavonte David was used quite a bit in that way, and he got a lot of success from using his linebackers like that. Jalon Walker, I could definitely see fulfilling that role, and I think that is where the versatility is a positive, because you can line them up in a lot of different positions and are able to, try to fool the offense. Jalon Walker is so fast that even though he's a little bit smaller than you might like for a pass rusher, he's 6'2" and 245 pounds. I did notice, likely because of his smaller frame, it seemed like he had more trouble when he was asked to rush on the inside as opposed to blitzing outside around the tackles because he wasn't able to use his speed. I'm not saying he has no pass rush toolset, but it is somewhat barren and it is more lacking than other prospects and, a more polished edge rusher would have on a usual basis. However, his speed is so good and his athletic ability is so good that it does make up for his lack of a tool set. It's kind of like the opposite of Shaq Barrett, who, because he didn't have the speed or athleticism, he had to develop a very versatile pass set, as opposed to Jalon Walker, who's just like, I'm going to just run around you and you can try to stop me, but you're likely not going to be able to, and you just have to live with that. That's sort of Jalon Walker's game. It's beat you with speed just so much that by the time you get hands on him, he's just bending the other way and breaking that and running full speed ahead. It's honestly, like I said, kind of beautiful. At the end of the day, though, this will ultimately come down to coaching to determine whether or not Jalon Walker is a bust. I think that the Bucs can get the best out of Jalon Walker. Again, you look at the recent history of the Bucs with these athletic defenders, it is pretty good. Hell, if you look at Devin White, we got the best football out of him for 2 years. Yes, I know the last 2 years weren't exactly the greatest, but again, we don't win a Super Bowl without Devin White's contributions. He was vital to this organization's success in that run, and I think, the Bucs getting the best out of him when he can't even start for the Eagles and other teams is a testament to what this coaching staff has done and the testament to them developing players at a very high rate. Again, look at Zion McCollum or YaYa Diaby, two guys which were seen more as projects that had the athletic ability but not necessarily the production to back it up. We have gotten really good football from those players. More good football than most people expected, even people that follow this team. Obviously, they play two very, very different positions, but you can kind of look at Jalon Walker and draw some similarities to Josh Allen in terms of huge amounts of athletic ability, but you do not know if they can develop so that they effectively use that athletic ability to be top players at their positions. Obviously, Josh Allen is an example of what happens when you hit a home run in terms of developing a QB. Anthony Richardson would be the other side of that, where you fail completely at developing the player. I think if you want to look at a comparison for a defensive player, you look at Marcus Davenport, who was a project coming out of UTSA, but never really worked out. You can blame injuries to some extent on why it didn't really work. However, he was still disappointing even when he was on the field. The injuries were just kind of the cherry on top of shit Sunday, if you will. But I think Walker will work. Like I said, this coaching staff has not given me reason to doubt them yet with these sort of athletic projects. They have done a lot of great work, and Jalon Walker has way more potential than a lot of the more recent draft picks in the later rounds, and if they manage to develop him correctly, I think can truly be a star. They just need to know what they want to do with him and what plan they have when they take him. If they take him, they can't just play him all over the field and expect him to develop. I would like him to stick at mostly one position and maybe have a few special packages where he lines in a different position. Hell, I mean, I've seen Vita Vea line up at middle linebacker, so surely Jalon Walker can have some packages where, he lines up somewhere else and use that versatility in those sort of special ways. Alright, so let me know what you think. If you disagree with my analysis of Walker, if you think he's a more polished prospect than I give him credit for, or if you think, I'm not being hard enough on him, you think he has no chance of developing, let me know. I'm curious what your opinions are. I'm obviously new to this. This is the first time that I've recorded something for a YouTube channel, for football at least, and, I want to do more of this. I don't want to just use my blog. I'd like to be able to grow my audience in a different way, and I think this can be a lot of fun. And I'm hoping to get better at this. Obviously, I know this video isn't perfect, but if you have any suggestions, like, for me to improve, just let me know in the comments. And if you like this, maybe subscribe. And I'll try to come out with more draft prospects and other, like, free agency stuff, and maybe not focus purely on the Bucs. However, as a Bucs fan, I kind of want to keep my main focus on them. But like I said, let me know what you think and if you like this.